The Beast at Kings Island has undergone massive off-season track work again. Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about. Let's kick this off by thanking our Prestige members. Let's give a shout out to Miss Mandy, 1983, Lil Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, 330T, Logan Lipper, Aaron Bort, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, Stephen Hornack, Eric Grau, Ian Crawford, Dustin Jackson, and Songstress Miku. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams, and hey, some tiers even get some free stuff.
Yeah, so Ryan, a few days ago, Kings Island posted on its social channels that the Beast was undergoing some massive track work. They showed some photos of some of the work that's being done.
Yeah.
Not a surprise to you and I. We had touched on it back in November that there was going to be a lot of track work being done on the Beast, but this covers more than 1,600 feet of track on the world's longest wooden roller coaster. Now, when you do the math on that, that's more than 21% of the 7,359 foot structure.
Yeah, it's funny because the news articles that came out about it saying that the Beast is going to have a minor renovation or something like that, but that's not an insignificant amount. Percentage wise, this might be higher than the quote unquote big Gravity Group projects that they had a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, this is covering a lot of ground, and back then it was a little over, maybe 1,000 feet that was being done. They did not specify either on the social post or the link to the blog who was doing the work, whether it was being done in-house, it was the Gravity Group, but when you look at the photos, you can see, the pre-cut track on that. So you kind of know the Gravity Group is involved somehow, whether they're actually doing the placement of the track or it's their, they're doing the cuts and that and bringing those pieces to the park, and then Kings Island's doing the install.
Yeah,
we've seen that done at other parks that way where it's done in-house. But it's, to me, it's a really exciting thing to see that here you have a coaster that's nearing 50 years old, and the park continues to put a lot of love and care into it to keep it, in pristine, condition, and continuing to make it almost, running better than ever. Now, I'm not going to say it's running better than ever after the first, work that was done a couple of years ago by the Gravity Group. But I would say it's the best that it's run since 1990, and that is when they switched from the individual or the buzz bars to the individual lap bars, and they went from the skids and the other brakes and all those other kind of things that they had tried over the years, and it became the trim brakes and that. So I think since that era, since 1991, it's certainly running the best that it has, and it's going to run even better this year. It looks like with all the work that's being done. You appreciate the park sharing this news, with their guests. Like I said, we touched on what was, there's going to be work being done back in November, but now we see exactly, where this is taking place. The one thing that caught me a little bit by surprise is when they were talking about where exactly this was all happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they say the project encompasses the section from just before the second hill. So that's, you come out of the tunnel at the end of the first drop. So you go over that hill, it says through the brake shed and the mid-course tunnel, including the track immediately before and after it. Now, going into that mid-course tunnel, they had done a stretch of track work there, in recent years. So I don't know if they're just redoing what they already did, or that's not exactly what, where the work is. I don't know, but that's what they say on their blog. But that's a pretty good stretch of track. We're talking about 1,600 feet, and it's just really exciting. I think for fans of the Beast that they're preserving this, try doing everything they can to make sure that it's around for future generations to enjoy.
Yeah, I think this is super exciting. We're almost to the point now where there isn't a lot of track left for them to.
Not too much, not too much really. I mean, they've done a lot of work. They've they've gone through the helix. They've gone through down the first drop, reprofiling that a little bit. They've taking it coming, out of the tunnel and making that turn there. And now you're going through, that second drop and the brake shed and into the mid-course tunnel. And then that after you get out of the mid-course tunnel, there's not a lot of runway until you get to the second lift hill, right? So, this is, again, exciting news. And, you don't see a lot of parks that have a roller coaster, a wooden one that's this old, that gets this kind of attention and care, this kind of an investment into it. Every couple of years, they've had some massive, track work that's being done with it. Now, there's always off-season work that gets done with it, throughout its history. But it's just good to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I always try to tell people. It's just that, they rebuild. They rebuild every off season, but this is far more extensive than that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely is. But it covers a lot of ground, over 21% of the ride, which is a lot. Again, we're talking over 7,300 feet of track.
7,361 feet of track.
Well, I said 7,359. They say 7,361. There was that claim that it grew 2 feet in 2022 when they redid the work. But, we touched on this in a not too long ago episode. If Guinness were to come out and remeasure the ride, would they find it to be identical to what it was in 1980 when they measured it? Or would they find that it gained 2 feet? And when you look at, the layout of it, where did it gain 2 feet? That's a question that was never answered.
Yeah, the original story was that because it raised up a little bit going into the tunnel, that's allegedly where it gained 2 feet. But I think that doesn't math, from what I understand.
It doesn't math, no.
From my understanding of math, it doesn't math.
Yeah. So if anyone's an engineer out there, and you can, we're talking about qualified engineers, and you
not
can
like
tell
us.
You can tell us where this might have gained 2 feet. I know in the T-shirts it says 7,361, but I know that raised a lot of questions back in 2022. Like, where is that? How did that happen? And there were engineers at that time, including people that worked on the beast in the beginning in 1976. From that point, back when it was first being designed, were part of the construction, asking me, how was that theoretically possible that it gained 2 feet, because it's not 2 feet longer anywhere that they could see. So that's a question that I'd love to see Guinness come back out and remeasure it.
Yeah, that's very expensive.
Prove us wrong. Prove me wrong, Guinness. Prove me wrong.
There's a meme of the beast didn't grow 2 feet. Prove me wrong, with the guy at the table.
Is there one of those?
Well, not for the beast, but it's like, pineapple doesn't belong on pizza. Prove me wrong, or whatever. And it's like a guy at a table.
No, I would love to be proven wrong about that, but I just, as that was, being floated out there, that it had gained 2 feet, and different people that were involved in the Beast project even, asking me, where's it gaining 2 feet? And they started explaining to me how engineering works, and that you can change profiles and that, but you're not gaining distance. So they were trying to explain it to me at that time, and so I'm just bringing it up now.
Yeah, but the T-shirts were made nonetheless.
That's right.
I don't know. Cool.
Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, does it really matter, though? It's still a great ride either way, right?
I refuse to wear a lie on my T-shirt.
But here's another thing: is this ride has been in the top 10 in the Amusement Today Golden Ticket Awards, the only wooden roller coaster that's been in the top 10 since the Golden Ticket Awards were introduced.
Yeah.
So all those years, it's always been a top 10. It almost fell out of the top 10, but then Coaster Stock, came along, and more people were coming, from out of state again, riding it, talking about how good it was again, and it kind of climbed its way, and it was kind of sticking around that midway point, number 5, number 6 every year. Then it jumped last year to number 3. So with all this track work that's been going on, does it have a chance to push for number 1? I don't know, but I think it's it's certainly going to keep itself in that argument as one of those top 1, 2, 3 wooden roller coasters out there with the work that's going on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, as they have the coaster stocks and the Ace events and stuff like that, people are going to rediscover the Beast for the first time. Yeah, I remember back in the Paramount days, it was like you had to have the right seat, or else it was just a terrible experience. But
Yeah, you didn't want to ride over a wheel seat. That was for sure on the Beast. You know, there was a period, but now it doesn't matter. I found I mean, one of my favorite places to ride back in the '80s. You know, from the time it opened in '79 through the '80s. You know, into the early '90s was the back seat,
mhm.
and I found that that was a seat that I really enjoyed again the last couple of years. It was something that was re-rideable in that seat again. So I was excited about that. And I think with the work that's going on, you know, now I think it's going to continue to be a ride that it doesn't matter where you sit on it. You know, you're going to get a fantastic ride.
I think that's true. And I would encourage anybody that maybe gave up on the Beast to give it a second shot once it reopens to the public this April. Because the Beast is a great ride. The downside was that it got a little rough, but man, it hasn't run better in 30 years. So,
Now you look at those pictures. There's a lot of work that needs to be done if those pictures were just recently taken.
right.
So we don't know when that was, you know, was taken. Was that the week of this recording and of the posting on their social channels and their blog, or was it, you know, 2 weeks ago? So I mean, there's a lot of work to be done if this is to be ready to go by the season pass preview, which is April
20th,
19th, I think.
19th,
April
19th, or 20th.
19th.
Yeah. That weekend. It's on the Friday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so check out the Beast. It's going to be better than ever in 2025. So we're really excited. Let's move on to a segment we like to call Buy or Sell.
All right, Ryan. River Racers, new this year in Soak City Water Park, will win the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Water Park Ride.
Is it the only thing running?
Well, it's just buy or sell. You know,
the thing though is, well, we know what's going to happen. It's going to debut. You're going to have a couple local people out there. You're going to have your influencers out there, and then you're never going to hear anything about it ever again. So, will it have the cultural impact that's necessary to win the Golden Ticket Award based on that alone? No, it's not going to do that. But I also don't know too many water slides that are opening. So if it's the only water coaster, maybe by default it picks it up. Oh,
so what are you doing? You buying or you selling?
I'm gonna sell. I think I'll sell.
I'm going to buy because you brought up that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of competition this year. A lot of, there's not any real major water coasters going in anywhere. Cedar Point has a couple of, water attractions going in. That's going to garner, some votes. It's a destination place. There's going to be a lot of interest, coming out of Cedar Point. But I think due to we use the word lack of competition this year in the aquatics world, I think it's got a pretty good shot if it gets off to a good start and they get people talking about it in the spring. So I'm going to buy. I think when September rolls around, I think they've got a shot at the Golden Ticket Award.
Yeah, we'll have to turn around and revisit it this coming fall and see which one of us is right, because that is a golden ticket that even like a small park could potentially win, because there seems to be years when a lot of parks add water park stuff, and there's a lot of years when it's one park that really adds a significant water park.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different, when you talk about the smaller water parks and just the ones that are just standalone water parks, there's different capital going into those places. So it's not like there's no competition for it, but I think it's got a legitimate shot, and I'm hoping that it does win.
Yeah. Let's move on to some Six Flags headline news. So, according to a story by Fox 4 in Kansas City, the Prowler roller coaster at Worlds of Fun, voted best new ride of 2009 by Amusement Today, is adding 400 feet of track. Now, we think that seems a little erroneous to report, so we reached out to the park spokesperson, Chad Showalter, for a comment on this, and this is what he had to say. So Once again, someone chose not to do their job, probably working from home. But let's talk about. We assume they're replacing 400 feet of track, right? I mean, they're not
Yeah.
400 feet of track.
I don't. That would, if you're adding 400 feet of track on Prowler, you're adding a whole new section to the ride almost, and I don't see that happening. I think we would have seen a lot more discussion about that. I think they would have picked this up off the Worlds of Fun blog. They made a social media post linked to a blog. So let's see how it was worded on the blog, and maybe that's where the um, mistake came in. Now it's one of those things that it won't let me continue unless I give them my email address. So let's go ahead
I can
and
pull
do
it up,
that.
Don.
All right, go ahead.
So I've got to put up. I'm actually going to share my screen so you guys can join along in all the fun.
So read how they word it.
So let's see here. So we're looking for Prowler.
Prowler, yes.
Yeah,
We're talking if it's 400 feet. If it's 400 feet, as this article says, where it says that it's adding 400 feet of track, that's almost like a brand new section.
Prowler receives 400 feet of Titan track. Prowler, known for its terrain-hugging track layout, fast-paced airtime hills, is getting more than 400 feet of new Titan track this offseason. This new track technology is commonly used to replace or upgrade sections of existing wooden coasters, but also in building ground-up coasters, including a section of the park's Zambezi Zinger. Well, I can see where the confusion came from.
Poorly written because they didn't describe what that meant. They should have said that the Titan track, it was replacing 400 feet of existing track is what they should have said. So I don't fault the newspaper for getting that wrong. They maybe have reached out and, like you, got crickets, when you tried to clarify what was happening there with that. But I think it's safe for us to share with our audience that the length of Prowler did not increase by 400 feet, as Fox 4 in Kansas City is reporting.
Right.
No fault of their own.
At first I was like, I read it like, okay, 400 feet of new track. And then the description, I was like, okay, I think the Fox 4 messed this up. And then it had to go on to say, oh, it also does ground up stuff. It's like, oh, I see why they thought that, it was 400 additional feet of track. But let's not let this overshadow that this is really, really good news. Titan Track is a fantastic product. Prowler is a fantastic ride. This is going to be a great marriage. It really is.
Yeah, now Prowler debuted in 2009, won the Golden Ticket Award, edged out Diamondback for the best new ride that year. One of the best wooden roller coasters I've ever ridden.
Yeah. Now, if you were going to ride Prowler and you wanted to represent Tower Topics, what would you wear?
Well, I'm going to wear a Tower Topics t-shirt, of course. It comes in a wicked green color. You can get yours in any size that you need, just $22. That includes shipping. If you're interested in one, just reach out. You can send us a direct message on our X, which is Tower_Topics, or you can email me, Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com. Send you the QR code. Once the transaction goes through, just takes a matter of days to get your shirt, and you'll love it. Very comfortable t-shirts.
Yeah, I love mine. And I tell you what, there's nothing more flattering than seeing somebody I don't know walking through the park or walking through Scene 75 wearing one of our t-shirts. So that is a really cool sensation. So we really appreciate everyone.
I just saw one the other day. I was Jungle Gyms, and somebody had a Tower Topics t-shirt on. They didn't have the green, they had the blue, but nonetheless, supporting the brand. And we love you guys. We really do. But we'll be right back with the listener questions. All right. First listener question. Michael from Claremont County said, hey guys, lots of people have been asking about the tram. I don't expect it back. This made me think of the overall parking situation at KI. Every place I've ever worked has made employees park far away to reserve the good spots for those who are paying for services. Why does Kings Island continue to allow employees to park in such premium spaces? Seems like they could free up a few hundred good spaces by moving employees out of their current Rockstar parking spaces. That's a good question. It's a great question. I think you'd have to try to figure out where else would you have the employees park. You don't want it to be a situation where they're parking too far away, and then they're not enjoying that, and it's you have to kind of make it good for them too. I think now that they don't use that one area there was a softball field, and they used to have softball teams in that among the different departments in that park. That's that grassy area, right outside of the parking lot near Sunoco. I think you could turn that into a parking lot. You could actually, put some shuttle buses there, which it costs a little bit of money, to operate the shuttles if you had, two or three that you were running associates, to and from. But I think if you did that, you'd open up some more premium spaces for the guest. Now, how often does Kings Island need all those spaces up close for all the guests in that? Yeah, on the Saturdays, the Sundays, you get into the fall, for haunt and that you need it. But on a day-to-day basis, the parking lot doesn't fill up entirely. So I don't know, but I do see your point. I mean, that's a prime spot right there for guest parking.
See, I'm going to play devil's advocate though, because imagine if you work at the Beast and you park, even if you get a good parking spot, you are a 15-minute walk away from having to be where you need to be. So if the employees have to park, let's say like the far corner over by like the Sunoco area, that's going to take them a long time to get there. And it's going to create such a terrible experience.
Yeah, you want it to be a good experience for them, right?
And you got to remember too, generally speaking, and I'm a huge advocate for the guests, so, but this is like reality is the employees are in a hurry, the guests are not. So
yeah,
they have to be somewhere, they have to be there on time. They're going to have people 10 minutes late because I was waiting on a shuttle bus or whatever, I just feel like that would be logistically pretty bad. And the parking at Kings Island, we've talked about how they don't really need trams because it's not that big.
It's not that big, no. And I don't know that, the employees have always, parked in that area. Yeah, and it works for the associates. On most days, it still works for the guests. You're not parking too far out unless you get there 3 or 4 in the afternoon like I said, on a Saturday, a Sunday, and then you're parking, a little bit further out. Now, it used to be in the south side, where more parking was, out where Soak City, and that is now the way they've reconfigured the parking lot. A lot of people, most of them are parking now on the north side, filling up that side of that used to be pretty wide open up in that area, so now that's filling up. But I don't think the parking lot's, terrible for either guests or employees. I think it's not a long walk either way. No matter where you are out there, you can be out by the parking tolls, and it still only takes a few minutes to get to the front gate.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Michael. I just think that this is the lesser of all evils where they're parked right now. So Thank you for the question. Cool.
Next question comes from Kurt from Alexandria, Indiana. He said, excluding rides, what are 3 things that are no longer at Kings Island that you miss? He says, mine would be the rock shop that was in Coney Mall, the elephant that would blow water out of its trunk that was in Hanna-Barbera Land, and the International Restaurant. I think that's a great question. Ryan, what would be 3 things that you would miss that are not rides?
That are not rides, yeah. The number one thing that comes to mind is the floral tunnel. I wouldn't mind that. I always feel like Kings Island is definitely on the downside of water features, fountains, and stuff like that. So, like the one in Coney Mall, as well as the one in front of the Fest House, I'd like to see those come back. So that's 2. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking number 1 for me is it's not a physical type of thing, but it's more atmosphere based, and that would be the theme music for each section that they had back in the 70s and the 80s. Something on International Street, that kind of set the mood when you walked in the park. You don't want the vocals in that from Miley Cyrus, when you're walking through Rivertown.
Right.
So I think that that would be number 1 on my list, would be bringing back the music that fit those areas. I agree with you with the floral tunnel. I think that was something that I miss. Now they do have that going back to Whitewater Canyon, but it's part of a way, back to a ride. So to come back and have it to where you had the benches. It was a great spot. I know that a lot of times my parents say, "I'll meet you guys here. Go ride the roller coaster," uh, and they would meet us there. I think that would be number two. Um, the fried chicken that the Columbia Palace had
Mm.
was a staple for me in the 70s and the 80s. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, biscuits. I miss that. So those would be the three that come to the top of mind. Without really, really digging deep.
Yeah. I guess the other thing I was trying to think of a third one, and trying to avoid rides, but the experience that was Nickelodeon Central, I think is something that kids really miss out on today with all the slime and you can get soaked there. And they had that cool, I don't remember what the show was called. I think it was like Slime Time or something. But that I remember, and this is definitely like a rose colored glasses thing because I was the proper age for it. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember Nickelodeon Central really having the look and feel of Nickelodeon Studios at Universal. And, I think the area is very benign compared to that now. So that would be my third.
Yeah, that was a great question.
That was a thinker. All right, next question. Tyson from Huber Heights, Ohio. He said, "Do you think Kings Island can or will possibly benefit from having Tony Clark as a regional PR manager?"
Now this is hypothetical, correct?
I assume so because Tony Clark, to my understanding, is not the regional PR manager over Kings Island.
No, last I looked, he had Cedar Point, Michigan's Adventure, and now has Six Flags Great America. But all right, I think the best way to look at that is, what you're looking for, what they would have to do, and do kind of a comparison there. And
Right.
let's start with, you know, on camera, for those kind of interviews. Is Tony an upgrade? I don't think it's even close. I think Tony's outstanding when he does TV interviews. Same thing with radio. He carries the conversation, knows his stuff. So I think, advantage Tony, in those two areas. If you're trying to get the crowd fired up, you have an announcement, like you had with whether it's Orion, Mystic Timbers, Banshee, those types of things. Do you want Tony on stage, or do you want the current PR? I think, again, advantage Tony. I think he's just a natural in front of
Yeah.
people. So you'd have that. In terms of uh, the coaster event, coaster stock, like Coaster Mania, I think, again, that's in his blood. Tony's an enthusiast at heart. Um, so I think he gets that community. I think that would be advantage Tony again. And earlier in this episode, we reached out. We had a question about what was happening at Worlds of Fun, clarification based on their website, how a newspaper could have got something wrong. So we were trying to clarify. We got crickets again. That wouldn't happen with Tony. I can
Mm.
tell you that he would um, not ignore any media inquiries if he thought the question was legit. So we're at what, four times now that we've reached out with questions and have been shut out all four times. Questions that our audience would need to know or have interest in knowing. I think Tony would have responded. We would have had a statement from Tony in those situations. I don't think he would have played the favorites game. He would have just taken the question, here's the statement, and go. So I think in those, if you're looking at it from that point of view, the communication part of it. Um,
The
you know,
communication part of the communications job is what you're
yeah, I think
describing here.
Tony's good. I mean, Tony's good. Um, you know, he's had times where he's a little bit of a polarizing figure at times, and but yeah, I think he's done a really good job. If you look at everything that he's had to deal with at Cedar Point over the years, he's done a really good job, and he's crisis communications. I mean, he's been in the middle of those kind of things too.
Mhm.
So I think you would be, if you're a park, you would be in good hands if Tony was your PR person.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just the outside looking in, but look at like the Maverick announcement and the Gatekeeper announcement. Then you got the Orion announcement.
Weird.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
you're like no comparison whatsoever. But
now Tony wasn't there for Gatekeeper. That was Brian Edwards' time. Tony had been there and had left the first time, and that was Brian Edwards announcing that. Tony came back not long before the ride launched. He was on the social media end when he first came back. But no, he's like I said, he's good. He gets it. He knows his stuff. He knows the industry. He can carry a conversation. So he's not scripted. He's not one of those.
Yeah, well, it's because he knows what he's talking about. When you know what you're talking about, you don't need a script. I said Gatekeeper. I meant Steel Vengeance, though.
Oh, Steel Vengeance, yes. That was a good teaser campaign. Yeah,
with the.
But like I said, he's creative. He gets the audience. He knows how to do little things, including things like Winter Chill Out, and just positioning things a certain way, knowing someone's going to see it, and it's going to create a lot of conversation and buzz. And he knows how to get people talking, and that's what you want. Is he going to like everybody? No. Is everybody going to like him? No. But are you going to have the information that you need to do what you need to do? If you're a reporter, yeah, you're going to have everything you need. If you're a guest, are you going to know what's going on at your park? Yeah.
So thanks for the question, Tyson. And if you have your own questions, Don, where do you send them?
Well, send them to me. It's easy to just drop an email at donhelbig@themeparksbydon.com. Put in the subject line, question for TT, or you can send us a direct message on our X, which is tower_topics, or you can just message us on or tag us on our X, which is where that question came from. So anyway, it works. We'd love to have you involved with Tower Topics.
Yep. Awesome. Great one. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.